The meeting is now being recorded, and I'll take the sedence for this meeting of the Risk and Audit Scrutiny Committee on the 26th of March 2024. Councillor Buchanan? No, not seeing you present. I can see that we have present Councillors Donnelly, Fulton and Gowland. Councillor Handybod? No. Also present today is Councillor Johnson-Dempsey. Councillor Kerr? Well, keep an eye out for Councillor Kerr. I was aware that she was having some technical issues. Also present today are Councillors Lockhart and McDougall. I can see that Councillor Keat has joined. Councillor Keat, can you advise if you are substituting for anyone, please?
Hello, Elizabeth. I'm substituting for Councillor Buchanan. I'm aware that my line might be a bit bad.
Thank you, Councillor Keat. Also present today is Councillor Fagan, the Acting Deputy Chief Executive, as well as a number of officers and colleagues from Audit Scotland. And with that, I'll pass you back to the Chair to commence today's business. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Elizabeth Ann. And before we start the meeting today, I just want to welcome our new Executive Director for Finance and Corporate Resources, Jackie Taylor. Congratulations on your appointment. And also to our new Head of Admin, Legal and Licensing, Ian Strachan. Again, congratulations on your appointment. And to welcome our guests, which would be Amanda Barclay and John Boyd. Okay, so moving on to the Declaration of Interest, item 1. Are there any declarations of interest? I'm not seeing any. Thank you very much. So item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. I would move those as a correct record.
I'll second, Chair. I'll second that, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Donnelly. Okay, so moving on to item 3, which is our good governance update. And I'll pass over to Ian Strachan to speak to this, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillors. The background to this, as the committee will be aware, every year we undertake a comprehensive review of the governance arrangements that are required to support the Council's financial and operational controls, and that review in turn informs the governance statement which is included within the annual accounts. In June 2019, this committee approved a revised reporting process as summarised in the report, including the significance governance areas, governance statement, and also the director's statements of assurance. This purpose of this report is threefold: to advise the committee of the findings from the annual compliance check against the local code, the outcome of the review of the code and the updated document, and an update on progress against the significant governance areas highlighted in the 22-23 annual governance statement. Take those briefly in turn. The findings from the annual compliance check, where we've included in Appendix 1 an extract from the 22-23 annual governance statement, which shows the significant elements of systems and processes that comprise the Council's governance arrangements and any changes and developments. With the annual review of the code, there have been some minor amendments, which summarise briefly there at 5.2 of the report. And then Appendix 3 gives a summary of progress on the significant governance areas highlighted within the annual governance statement. And the recommendations to the committee this afternoon are to note the findings from the annual compliance check against the local code, approve the updated local code, and also note the progress against these significant governance areas. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Ian. That's a comprehensive update on the code and then the minor amendments on the good governance. Does anyone have any questions for Ian on this report?
Thank you, Ian. Thanks for the comprehensive update and the amendments noted for the good governance update. I do have a question in relation to community planning on page 38 of Appendix 3. Could you provide further details of that, please?
Thank you, Councillor. I'm not Thank you, Councillor. I'm not sure that I can, but if you could specify a bit more greater detail the question, I'm sure we can get an answer unless one of my colleagues is able to assist today.
We will do that, Ian. It's around the community plan.
Does Jackie want to speak to this?
Oh, sorry.
No, not at all, not at all. On page 38, that's obviously around our community wealth building approach. And as you'll know, there's a commission that picks up a lot of the actions around community wealth building. So what we're able to do is we'll be able to share with you some recent papers, and hopefully that'll contribute towards your understanding of that, if that's okay.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. I had a question in relation to the section under economic planning, and it relates to East Kilbride Town Centre. And it mentions that an annual report will be taken to committee in April this year. I'm quite interested in this as an East Kilbride councillor, so it's a kind of parochial point. And I just wondered if that would include an update on progress, as I've not seen any updates since the initial presentations. I don't know if anyone who would be able to help with that, Ian?
Thank you, Councillor. I personally don't know, but we'll take that to colleagues and come back and confirm if that's okay.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Thanks very much. Do we have any other questions for Ian? Or happy with that? Okay, in that case, I'll ask the committee to approve this report.
I'll second that, Chair.
Okay, I believe that our council leader and deputy acting chief executive can leave now if you wish. Thanks, Councillor Fagan. Okay, so moving on to item 4, our 2024 to 2025 internal audit plan. So can I ask Yvonne Douglas, our audit and compliance manager, to speak to this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. As you say, the purpose of the report is to seek approval of the 24-25 internal audit plan. The report starts with giving you some context around internal audit, where it sits within the Council's wider governance framework, and how the annual report that's presented by internal audit feeds into the governance statement that's included in the Council's annual accounts. We have a specific internal audit charter that sets out how the function operates within the Council, and as a reminder, I've attached a copy of this at Appendix 2 to the report. In addition to that, we also have a set of public sector internal audit standards with which we need to comply as a function. And the committee will maybe remember in October 23 we brought the outcome of an external assessment on our level of compliance to the committee, which identified a few areas for improvement. We've made progress with a couple of actions, and they are noted at the top of page 44 because they specifically relate to the audit planning process. And this was an appropriate juncture to bring this update to you in relation to those actions. The planning process therefore now fully complies with the auditing standards. The report notes that the standards are being reviewed and the revisions will be effective from 2025. So one of the things that we're looking at this now is those new standards and what that means for us as a function. And there'll be updates will come to the committee in 2024. So there's an understanding around the standards ahead of their implementation in 2025. So when we start the planning process every year, the first thing we need to do is calculate the number of days that we've got available to deliver the audit plan across the team. And we also have a think around the key themes that we need to be reflected in the audit plan. And you'll see that within 4.4 and 4.5 of the report. Deciding on what we include within the plan, we use a series of risk assessment criteria. And again, for information, I've attached that and as an appendix, and that's at Appendix 4 on page 58. This process then leads us to the development of a plan, and a copy of the plan is attached at Appendix 3, which starts on page 54. Now you'll note this year there are a couple of key elements to the plan. I'll just bring those to your attention. Firstly, a continuing commitment to support the implementation of new and significant council-wide IT systems. You'll see reference to that in the audit plan. And separately also an investment in time around data analytics. Now when we talk about data analytics, what we really mean is we take data from either financial or operational systems, we analyse those to identify trends or patterns, and this is a direction that internal audit is taking, and it's something that we now need to invest more time in to develop a strategy, develop skills within the team, and to think how we're going to apply those skills when we're performing our audit work. All of that takes time, so we've reflected that in the audit plan as well. Across those two areas, that accounts to a third of all of the available days we have in 24-25, so perhaps just underlines the significance of both of those areas. In the plan that you see attached, along with a proposed scope, what we've tried to do is link to council priorities and also show you where it links to one of the council's top risks. The outcome of each of the areas within the audit plan is a report in which we convey the findings, add an audit opinion as to whether controls are working effectively, and we continue to report that to committee throughout the year in terms of progress as part of activity reports. An overall audit opinion is obviously expressed within the annual report, and that comes to the committee in June of each year. That concludes the main points within the report, so if I can just take you to the recommendations on page 43. At 2.1, it is firstly that a proposed internal audit plan for 24-25 is approved, and secondly, you know our intention to come back with a more detailed plan around the days that are simply a single line in the plan at this point around Fusion, to give the committee a better overview in terms of how we intend to spend those days during 24-25, and obviously for the committee to have an input to those days and how they're planned out. I think that concludes the report, but I'm happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Yvonne. I had asked a question, obviously, by email to yourself, Yvonne, regarding the 360 odd days set aside for Fusion, because clearly that's a key project for the organisation, and it will need sufficient attention by yourselves, whether it be through your audit expertise or other advice that might be sought. So I see you've sent me some initial thoughts around your ideas of how you break down those days. Would you be able to share that with the rest of the group? I know you're going to bring back a more detailed plan at a later date, but if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to do that. So the 345 days are split across 4 main areas. So we've estimated that in Q1, which is the early implementation period for Fusion, that we've allocated 100 days for that. We've separately allocated 25 days to do some follow-up of audit actions. So some of the audits we've been doing, the response has been, well, that will be addressed through Fusion. So we've basically deferred following those audit actions up until Fusion has been implemented. So we've set aside some days to now go ahead and check that. We set aside 40 days for data analytics. So that's us starting to look at Fusion in terms of how we use that information. As part of the data analytics, given the fact it's going to be our key financial and HR system, there's a lot of data in there, and we're looking to see how we make best use of it in terms of producing management information, but also allowing us to do some audit work and come back to the audit committee and provide assurances. And the bulk of the time, the remainder of the 345 days is 180. That's just down as a test programme, so that's the bit that we need to then break down into individual elements. And in doing that, we need to decide what priorities are for 24-25 and beyond, which is why we're suggesting we bring a 3-year plan back to allow the audit committee to see what audit work looks like in Fusion across a rolling programme, because we obviously won't be able to approach everything in the first year, but we want to give the committee some assurance around total coverage and also how we're prioritising that work. So there's a wee bit more work to be done to get that breakdown, but the commitment's there to do the work and to report back to the committee.
Thanks, Yvonne. Thanks for that additional detail. I think that's helpful. And also the massive amount of work that goes into this planning as well. Does anyone else have any questions they want to raise for Yvonne? Not seeing anything. Okay, so can I ask the committee to approve the report? I shall move that. Need a seconder?
I'll second that, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Okay, so thank you very much. So moving on to item 5, which is the South Lanarkshire Council Annual Audit Plan 2003-2024. Yeah. So for this item, we have John Boyd, who's joining us remotely who's the Audit Director, who will speak to the report. I'm not sure if it's John speaking or Amanda. Is it John? It's John. Okay, so I'll pass over to John. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, members. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you okay, John.
That's great. And apologies, I can't be there in person. I had a number of committees earlier in the day, so I wasn't going to make it through in time. The paper in front of you is our annual audit plan for the year ended 31st of March 2024. The plan is similar to in format to the one you'll have seen in previous years. Essentially, it outlines our responsibilities as your appointed auditor and provides a high-level summary of our audit approach and plan for the coming year, and our outputs, our expected outputs in 23 for the 23-24 annual accounts. The plan is effectively split into two key elements. It covers our responsibilities and our risk assessment and areas of focus as part of our financial statements audit, and our responsibilities to issue an audit opinion on your annual accounts. The second element is in respect to our responsibilities under the Code of Audit Practice in relation to the wider scope or the wider scope areas, including financial management, financial sustainability, vision, leadership and governance, and use of resources to improve outcomes. And we consider the Council's arrangements for securing best value. In terms of the annual accounts and the audit of the annual accounts, as with any financial statements audit, as auditors, we assess using our professional judgment and generally accepted practice the concept of materiality. So this is essentially what we consider would influence the users of the accounts, what we think are material to users of the accounts. And we've set that out in Exhibit 1 on page 64 of the pack. The basis is broadly consistent with prior year, and it's based on our risk assessment. We use gross expenditure as the benchmark for your materiality, like we do for all local authorities and the majority of public sector bodies, on the basis that the use of the accounts' predominant focus is on how a council spends its money. The other threshold really to draw your attention to is the reporting threshold. So this is important as it's the areas of where if we identify a misstatement during the course of our audit work, essentially an error in the accounts, it will report to you anything that arises during the course of the audit work above that amount, which is based on a percentage of your overall materiality. Our audit approach is risk-based, so as part of our audit planning, we look to identify areas where there's a risk of material misstatement. So this could occur through error, through fraud, or through the complexity or judgment of the accounting balance or transaction. In Exhibit 2 on page 65 and 66 of the pack, you'll see that we've identified two areas of significant risk. The first is a presumed risk required by all auditors to consider the risk of material misstatement due to fraud by management override. So as part of our audit planning, we have to have that presumed risk that given management's position and their access to your accounting systems and the inherent motivation for management, there is a presumed risk across any financial statements audit of manipulation. And what we've outlined there is our proposed testing response to that. So just to reassure members, this isn't something specific in relation to the council. This will be present in the majority of financial statements audits that you would see any auditor undertake. The second risk is in relation to estimation of land and buildings. As you were aware, it was a key area of focus as part of our audit work last year, and continues to be an area of particular focus for auditors. Auditing standards in recent years have required auditors to have greater focus on accounting estimates and judgments, and one of the largest in your annual accounts is in relation to the valuation of land and buildings. Given this complexity and subjectivity in some of the valuations, we have it as an area of increased risk due to the risk of error in the financial statements. The other area, just really to draw the committee's attention to, is on page 67, as another area of focus as part of our audit work is in relation to the pension valuation. Again, this is an area of significant estimate and judgment, and therefore we'll undertake assessment around the assumptions made as part of that and the data used by the actuary in arriving at the actuarial valuation in the accounts. In terms of our wider scope responsibilities, as part of our audit work, there are two main areas that we'll consider this year. We've identified one significant risk, which I'm sure members will recognise as a common area of focus as part of your external audit work around financial sustainability. Given the financial pressures facing both the Council as well as some of your key partners and the broader public sector, particularly through some of the cost of living challenges and pressures on available funding for the Council, as well as those inflationary pressures, there's real significant challenge on the Council and other councils around the financial sustainability and financial resilience, and that's a particular area of focus that we'll undertake as part of our wider scope work in the current year. Another area of focus is in relation to thematic work. So the Accounts Commission request all auditors undertake a thematic review as part of the audit work each year. Last year it was looking at leadership and effective strategic leadership. This year it's looking at workforce and workforce innovation. And as part of our work this year, we'll undertake that thematic review on workforce innovation and consider how the Council is responding to the current workforce challenges through both building capacity and focusing on productivity and use of your workforce. Really just in terms of the final areas, we've included in there a proposed audit accounts timetable with a target sign-off date for the end of September. This year is the second year of the audit, our audit appointment, and we've built up quite a good working relationship with the finance team and hope to build on that as part of our work this year. Our planning planning process has started earlier, and we're looking to actually bring forward some of our substantive testing earlier to relieve some of the pressure at year end in terms of getting the audit completed in line with the statutory targets. So I'm confident we can deliver on that 24th of September timeline. Really just the final areas to touch on is just confirmation of our independence. So we confirm in our annual audit plan and in our external audit report our ongoing independence of the Council, and we confirm that as an audit team we're required under ethical standards to maintain that independence. I've included in there the audit fee, and we'll confirm just the final fee in our annual audit report. The audit fee this year is sent, so the audited bodies are informed of the proposed audit fee. It's late in December each year. There's an opportunity for the appointed auditors to negotiate an uplift in that baseline fee if there are particular risks or issues identified either in planning or during the course of the audit. We've not identified anything during our audit planning to propose a change from the proposed fee notified in November. So it was up, kept at that sort of baseline fee for 23-24. Happy to take any questions either on the audit plan or the whole audit itself this year.
Thanks very much, John. Comprehensive report. And I'm glad to hear that the chunky fee isn't looking like it's going to be uplifted. So that's good to hear. It's also good to know that we've still got these independent audit practices in place in Scotland, given what we've seen in some councils down in England, where the auditor processes were done away with some time ago. So I'm sure that you'll be completely value for money for the chunky fee that we'll be paying out. I don't have any other particular questions on the plan. As you say, you've already built up good relationships in the organisation, and there's obviously continuity of people here. So I don't know if anyone else has any questions they want to pose to John at this stage. I'm not seeing anyone. Okay, so John, just to thank you for that, and Amanda for that comprehensive report. So I will move the report and ask for a seconder and ask you to note it.
I'll second that, Chair.
Okay, thanks Mary, and thanks again John. Okay, so moving on to item 6, the internal audit activity as at the 8th of March 2024, and we're back over to Yvonne to speak to this report. Please, Yvonne.
Thank you, Chair. This report covers the period 13th of January to 8th of March, and the main part of the report is in section 4, where there's a brief update in terms of progress. So at the end of February, we're reporting that a third of the plan has been completed to draft report stage. That obviously means that 2/3 of it is not. So the audit committee will be looking for some assurances from me in terms of a plan to bring this to a conclusion. We have completed all of the field work. Almost all of the assignments are just at review stage, and probably just a reflection of some of the other things that we've been involved in, that our review time has been limited. But we have a plan in place to close all work down and to be able to conclude in that and report within the annual report. A brief summary of the areas of focus at 4.2. It continues to be with the National Fraud Initiative, which closes down at the end of this month. There'll be a report to committee on that in due course. Some investigative work that we're involved in, our external client audit plans as well, and the key one is Oracle Fusion, that's obviously at a critical phase at this point. Aside from that, the key performance indicators, as we normally report, are attached to Appendix 1. There's nothing significant to draw your attention to out with the delivery of the plan, which I've just covered. And Appendix 2, I've summarised the assignments that have been closed in the period, which you'll see are all very routine of nature, and usually assignments that will close down in the March of the year as we begin to bring the plan to a conclusion. So I'm asking at this stage that the committee note progress. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Yvonne. Do we have any questions? Everyone's been very quiet today. Okay, I just wanted to ask a question, and I think I asked it the last one, and I think I know what you're going to say, but I'll ask it anyway. So it's on the key performance indicators and the audit items percentage complete, and obviously we're getting close to the end point of that. If you could just kind of comment on those numbers and how, you know, your confidence around completing everything in time.
Yeah, I think there's an absolute recognition that it's not an ideal position in terms of being at this point in the year where we've got a third of the plan. I'm confident that the audit work has been completed. I'm aware of the draft findings. There's not anything significant in there. That means that it will appear in an annual report, and there's some significant points to be made. So it's very much just a reflection on changes within the team in the year, and the prioritisation of our resources to support some really key corporate projects, and it seems better use of our time in that area. It's had an impact on us as a team, but we think we can manage it and we'll be able to conclude on the plan and look in 24-25 to have a kind of more staggered approach so that we're routinely coming to the committee with a percentage of the plan being completed. So hoping to revert to more business as usual in 24-25, and you'll see a steadier flow of audit assignments coming through to the committee.
Thanks very much, Yvonne. I'm not seeing any other questions, so on that point I'll ask the committee to note the report and I will move that. Okay, so
I'll second that.
oh, sorry, Mary. Apologies. So moving on to item 7, our forward programme for future meetings, and I'll pass over to Elizabeth Ann to speak to this, please. Elizabeth Ann.
Thank you, Chair. This is a standard report which is brought to each meeting of the Risk and Audit Scrutiny Committee, the background of which is set out at paragraph 3.1 of the report on page 87 of your pack. The purpose of the report is to advise members of the forward programme for the committee, and in the case of this report, meetings are detailed up to the 6th of May 2025. And the details are provided in the appendix on pages 89 to 90 of the pack. Members are also invited to suggest topics for inclusion in the committee's forward programme. The recommendation is set out at paragraph 2.1, where the committee has been asked to note the forward programme for the Risk and Audit Scrutiny Committee, and in the case of this report, that is up until the 6th of May 2025. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Elizabeth Ann. So I'll ask the committee to note the report and I'll move that report.
I'll second that, Chair.
And just to mention again to members, if there's anything you ever want to bring forward into the programme, then we're more than happy to hear from you. I just wanted to mention one other thing as well. There's been a training needs analysis assessment sent out to all councillors, and there was an indication from some members, and I think all of us would welcome any and all training, you know, that there could be training that could be helpful for the members within this, and hopefully people have responded to that, and we'll see a response to that soon. So it's really just that to mention that. And then on the final point of any urgent business, none has been intimated to me, so I will thank you and close the meeting. Thank you very much.